Yeah, so this is how sometimes you start your day on a very easygoing note. It is 24 degrees centigrade here in Abuja, and of course, business is going on. Well, of course, not probably not the word hustle and bustle. They do different here, just in case you're wondering. I know somebody's about to rub it in.
Oh,
But in anyways,
here we go again.
lovely scenery.
Here we go again.
It's good for your mindset.
Absolutely. I love the city. That's Jabi Lake, by the way, with everything that comes with it. Kado Estate is somewhere
There are
around
offices
there.
around it as well, just so you know.
Offices are around here as well. It's a massive business section around, up and around that lake there. Well, that is the beautiful scenery, our beautiful, peaceful city of Abuja. And looking forward to a wonderful, calm morning.
Well, no doubt, this is a beautiful sight to wake up to any day and any time. Chamberlain, I still remember, you know, the day you took a section of this particular location for a quiz, and there was a struggle. Even the person sitting next to you, I'm not mentioning anyone's name, the person right there in the studio with you could not even identify where the place was.
Now, this is the unveiling.
This is the full unveiling of the area. So I didn't mention anyone's name, just so you know. I didn't mention anyone's name. Hey, but right now, I know that the weather you have there in Abuja is something in the region of 27 degrees, feeling like 30, with a 77% humidity. It's not too far from what we have in Lagos at 28 degrees, feeling like 33%, 33 degrees, but our own humidity is a little more than yours at 87%. So, beautiful one. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. So much later in the day, you get that 27, you know, but right now, that 24 feels like 27. And so, well, I know by now, you know when they say, come to where the flavor is.
Hey, Aya, are you coming to where the flavor is?
As I was saying,
if wishes were horses.
You know, one thing about your city in Abuja or anywhere else in Nigeria is they say, welcome to Abuja, welcome to Nasarawa. But when you get to Lagos, they tell you, this is Lagos. Whether you want to welcome yourself or not, that's another thing altogether.
When you get to Lagos, it shows you. But places like Abuja, you know, you're welcome. You know, it's really nice. But Lagos assaults you with its presence.
Oh, Lagos tells you,
welcome to Abuja.
Lagos tells you, no, darling, this is Lagos. And of course.
Lagos are going to attack me one day.
I mean, you know, the thing about this country is that there are lovely places in this country that you and I haven't seen for a while. And if I haven't even ever seen. And so you see them and you feel, wow. So there are. Sometimes you need to look at all of those areas. Of course, while you go about your regular business as you try to build the country, the one that, you know, generations will be happy to live in. But yes, indeed. So this morning, there seems to be some unfortunate scenario in Lagos.
Yes, Chamberlain. I was in traffic for about 2 hours before, well, a little over an hour before getting to the office this morning. And you know that's very much unlike me. So a trip that would take me something about, say, 15 minutes took me more than an hour. And I'm wondering how far back the traffic tails now. Unfortunately, what happened, there was a horrible accident, this particular one. This was taken, of course, much earlier in the day, and the traffic I ran into just before Berger bus stop. But I wonder how far back it tails now. You can see it's right in front of World Oil fuel station. I'm wondering how far back it is now. When I got back a look at it, it's like there's a small vehicle right under this big trailer truck right there. And I saw it must have involved like 3 different vehicles, because I also see one of the luxury travel buses when I got through from the traffic to come to the office this morning. I know that there are officials of government there. LASTMA, I noticed LASTMA officials are there. Of course, this is the luxury bus that is also involved in that traffic, horrible, horrible traffic. I don't know how far back the traffic tails now, but I'm almost certain it will be somewhere around the Secretariat bus stop right now. So in case you know anyone who is saying they're in traffic, they don't know where they are, this is the origin of it. It's still there right now, and I know that officials of government are there to do whatever they can. What is unfortunate, as usual, in Lagos, Chamberlain, is those on the other side who are not directly affected by the traffic are slowing down to see what's going on. And that is also causing a backlog of traffic on the other side of the expressway. That's also to let you know exactly, excuse me, exactly what is happening in Lagos at this time. But officials of the law of government are there to ensure they do the needful. LASTMA officials are there, FRSC officials are also there. How they're going to get a truck to this place to remove the impediment in the road, I think that's what we are waiting to see now. But just so you know that this is the cause of that horrible backlog of traffic this morning.
Well. You forgot to add, this is Lagos, so be careful.
I hope it's not ghastly. I hope no one lost their lives. It looks really terrible, this accident, and we hope everyone is safe. And if you're on that axis, please take it easy, please.
Well, what we can only say,
how we use the roads.
Absolutely. Well, we can only hope. I mean, of course, we will definitely bring you more updates on that as events unfold. But for now, that's just the situation that we have on our hands.
All right, let's go ahead and take you through some of what will play out today. The ministerial briefing continues. It will happen today. It's about a year in office of this administration. So you've got the ministers of FCT, Youth Development, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, Aviation and Aerospace Development, scheduled to brief this morning. So they're supposed to be there and ensure that Nigerians get to hear what have they done in the ever since this government came through. So all eyes will be on them today.
Also happening today, the launch of the national portal, and I think it's going to be happening at the exact same venue. Launching of the national portal, Govt.ng. And of course, this national portal will provide this single gateway to government services, and it will be enabling citizens, home and abroad, to easily access and register marriage certificates, national ID, your NIN, registration of birth, apply renewal of driver's licenses, apply or renew your passport. So that portal is going to be launched today. It's OneGov, right? OneGov.ng. OneGov.ng. So it's going to be launched today. We'll be keeping you informed on what all of that is about in the course of the day. And it's going to be a very interesting one, because I want to be able to do this at home. I don't want to be going to the office, standing on the queue, you know. I don't want to do that anymore. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that one. Ayo's got business for us. Yeah?
No, before the business bit. Yeah. So I think today's also the... Oh, by the way, about this launch. So when that happens, the narrative we heard for those of Nigerians who are usually outside the country who want to access some of these things is they get all kinds of impediments that the missions lay or place there. So they need to find a way to ensure that we don't constitute as impediments to ourselves if this is launched. So it's supposed to be OneGov, right? So let's not make it 2 or 3 with those impediments. Just one-stop shop. But some people always want to make sure that, no, there must always be another layer. It shouldn't be this easy. Or it be this easy. It shouldn't always be that way. And it's also National Museum Day today as well.
Yeah.
When last did anybody go to any museum, though? Oh, well.
We should go. There's so many.
Yeah. So, Ayo.
Yeah, well, you will go to a museum if there is one next door. But, hey, right now we're going to have business. Come Kayla, let's just hold it. We'll go to we'll go to business now. Business this morning will be assessing CBN directive on BDCs concerning license reapplication. Find out the details of that this morning during Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Before you go on and on, Kayla, let's go to the papers.
Okay, let's take you through some of the dailies we have for you this morning. We're going to start with Nigerian Tribune. The lead story, 1 year in office. Economic pains, hardships, unintended, ascribed to federal government. Ministers apologize to Nigerians, say Tinubu laying foundation for nation's growth. That's a big lead you have right there on the front page because, of course, it is an ongoing conversation across the country, which, of course, will come to also as we progress here this morning. Nigerian News Direct equally focuses on that theme, 1 year anniversary. Tinubu ministers to present scorecard. President has laid foundation for sustainable progress, prosperity in 1 year. Ascribed to SGF there today. So, what if you have a look at blueprints? Similar narrative, Tinubu's renewed hope agenda working, ascribed to Akume. But above that list, Yakubu to CX. Stop coronating ruling parties' candidates in LG polls. Look at that word. Coronating seems to be the operational word here, and that sticks out for a lot of people. All right, so moving on to Daily Trust. They lead with CNG, no conversion centers in 27 states. High cost, forex crisis, slow adoption. Owners of 15.5 billion vehicles in dilemma. FG partners Algon to reach 774 local government areas. Oh boy. Well, who knows? Probably those who have had this conversion done may send us a word or two to know what they're grappling with at the moment. But Vanguard is next here, and they focus on minimum wage talks. Labour cuts demand to 497,000. FG OPS offer 57,000. Ooh, so there you go. But look at the write-up. Yesterday's talks end in stalemate. Uzodinma attends briefly as other governors shun minimum wage talks. So could it be that the briefly means since others are not there, that I might as well vote? I don't know. The Guardian is up next here. 18-year-old construction work. That's a different theme altogether. From 9 billion naira in 2006, abandoned National Library to cost over 200 billion naira. Whoa. Cost of abandoned projects. Who knows? This Nigeria leads with insecurity. Military denies aiding, abetting, profiting from banditry, terrorism. Tackles Katsina governor, rather asks him to substantiate claims. So this is a significant back and forth, huge one in terms of its implications here. So we'll be looking to see how it turns out eventually. But Daily Independent is also focusing on the national minimum wage matter. Labour shifts ground, accepts 497,000 naira, FG sticks to 54,000 naira. So that's clearly deadlock there. No zone of possible agreement as of yet. So that's what you see there. The Nigerian Observer, no more money rituals, smoking in Nollywood movies, says FG. You heard? So that's a big lead there. So guys, I'm wondering what you make of this one. Okay, so I know we got to run, but look at that new telegraph, guys. LG polls, mere coronation of ruling parties' candidates ascribed to INEC. So, isn't this what we've been talking about all the while? So, who knows? In fact, look at this. It says that sometimes they just constitute the SEC on the eve of elections, then disband them afterwards. That's impunity, to say the least, that goes on in some states. But how is it that nothing can be done about it, or we're not doing something about it? Something can be done, but others seem to have chosen to look the other way. But you know what? It's up to you and I to decide if we want this to continue or not. Because this country belongs to us. So we should have our say, not just our say, our way, for the most part. Because the right things have got to be done. QED.
I think what stands out for me from the Vanguard this morning, so this dance between Labour and the federal government, well, Labour has shifted, it's going to continue like this, to 497,000 naira as minimum wage, and the federal government is offering 57,000 naira. This dance will continue until some kind of solution is reached. But, you know, it's pertinent that while we understand these negotiations are going on, that the Nigerian is suffering. Okay, it's a very important point to make and a very important scenario for us to be very conscious of. These demands, for the Nigerians out there who are thinking, look, we cannot continue, look, these demands, listen, it's important that the worker is able to survive. We can't kill the worker. If things are hard, if inflation is up, if everything is costing 3 times more, then we should be able to handle that. These are some of the questions out there. That's why many people feel, you know, a lot had to be done before these policies of government were made. But these policies have been made already. Now we have to be able to make sure that the Nigerian survives. And that is why these negotiations are going on. And they will continue until some logical conclusion is reached.
Well, my pick this morning, and that's quite an important thing that you raised there, Kayla. Well, my take this morning concerns the image of Nigeria anywhere in the world. So I am very excited about what I find on the front page of the Nigerian Observer this morning when they say, no more money rituals or smoking in Nollywood movies, says the federal government. Well, interestingly, the statement was made at a national stakeholders engagement on smoke-free Nollywood, and it was in Enugu. What I find interesting about this one is it concerns the image of Nigeria. It is the narrative we want people to see that they will see. It is the narrative we want anyone to see in the world about Nigeria that they will see. But while the statement has been made by the federal government, the question we also want to ask is, how is the federal government encouraging the movie makers to get on with this that they have made a pronouncement about? Who is even monitoring the quality or grading of Nigerian films? We know that there is a National Film and Video Census Board, but do they censor indeed? Or are they just looking out to tax? It's just a question. So whatever their answers are, please provide. But it is exciting that this is coming from the very same Film and Video Census Board, the CEO of the organization. So how is government going to support Nollywood? That should also be put out there. How should everyone who is a movie maker get any access to government or any government intervention? I know that the federal government has had this team led by Alibaba at some point concerning the creative industry in Nigeria, and I'm glad that the federal government recognizes them. Or what are the impetus they get? What are the advantages that they get? What are the incentives that they get for laundering the image of Nigeria the way it ought to be? Please add that also to the buffet. In the meantime, we'll take a short break now. When we return, it's time to have solid conversations. Please stay with us.
In Africa is the thrust of this one-day summit in Abuja. President Bola Tinubu is represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima at the event, which has dignitaries from all walks of life, including former President Olusegun Obasanjo.
I bring you warm greetings from...
Between 2019 and 2023, Africa has witnessed at least 11 coups, and this wave of military putches raises the question of how well Africa has fared with democracy.
These challenges or failures manifest in the inability to promote credible elections, inclusiveness, improved prosperity, and meaningful transformation and stability on the continent.
Today, the people of West Africa paint a clear picture of a gathering crisis. Strong men and authoritarian governments are gaining power, and civilian rulers, civil society leaders, and human rights advocates are being silenced as they sound the alarm.
For former President Obasanjo, democracy will be effective if built on good leadership, strong institutions, the rule of law, and people-centered governance.
Hope is the oxygen of democracy. And if you lose hope, then your democracy is dying. And what we find is that our youth particularly are losing hope and interest in democracy. And we have to do something about that.
He calls for a contextual democracy that addresses the peculiarities of Africans.
The rethinking of liberal democracy should be focused on Africanizing a universal political system based on African realities and peculiarities. The context and the content must be interrogated, suitably and appropriately placed to serve our purpose.
President Bola Tinubu, speaking through his vice, says democracy is better than the military rule as he advocates the revitalization of regional communities in Africa to bolster trade and integration.
Today we have recorded 25 years of unbroken democratic governance. We have learned through bitter experience that the cure for bad democratic governance is more democracy. As one of our most profound intellectuals, the late Professor Claude Ake, once famously opined that people must learn to become their own political messiahs from bad governance. This can only be done through the instrumentality of democracy.
The takeaway from this summit is that for democracy to have impact in Africa, and Nigeria in particular, leaders must emerge through a free, fair, and credible election that reflects the people's will. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Okay, so that is what we're going to be talking about right now. We've got a professor of creative writing in the University of Abuja. He's also former presidential aide to the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, who you heard there. He's also an author, Dr. Tunde Olushunle. Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Good to be here again.
So,
good morning.
You know, a lot in terms of, if you look at all the key issues that were highlighted there, the peculiarities to Africa, significance, democracy, what does it mean to us? And from the way it seems to be playing out, question marks. So those suggestions that they have given, how do you internalize it, for instance?
Thank you very much. Good to be here again. Largely what we have done in Africa is to adopt the kind of democracy that is not domesticated, which doesn't carry the essential African flavor. Presidents in Africa, for instance, in most instances, operate under a constitution that makes them virtual demigods. They're so all-powerful, they have the power to hire and fire. We've had instances of, roughening up between presidents and their deputies, for instance. We've had, issues of funding, issues of cost of governance by the kind of governance template that we operate. Our democracy is 25 years, and it is very important that we're having this kind of conversation. One of my most recent articles was titled Wanted, in an emergency summit on the cost of governance. And I was looking back, and trying to see how, for instance, the cost of governance today has ballooned the way it has. When we came in 1999, I remember very clearly that at the level of special assistants and aides to ministers that were appointed, there was actually an attempt by the civil service, the bureaucracy itself, to help fill those positions. But you see, the political class thought it differently and said they should be given, some legroom to make some of their appointments. But, President Obasanjo, reduced the numbers to 2. Now, but if you look at today, 25 years after, there's been this wholesale ballooning of the system. I was looking at the papers the other day, and I checked, one of the head of one of the arms of government in his own office has about 68. He has special advisors, he has senior special assistants and special assistants, 60 of them. All of these people have to be paid. They have to run their own families. They have schedules, which they also have to fund and all that. If you now apply this to what happens elsewhere too, it is almost a global phenomenon across the continent. We woke up on Sunday, for instance, to learn about the attempted coup in the DRC. And if you look at the undercurrents, you see the leader in Nigeria's kind of democracy, in the African style of democracy, is so all-powerful. Same for the governor. We have officials who don't think they are accountable to anybody. They get there, and they just run on their steam. Of course, the story about the former Kogi State governor is there, where you have a governor who, from his seat there, was, transferring money in foreign exchange to a school for some of his children who probably were not yet born. So, it is this kind of, how do you put it now, this kind of over-muscular democracy, in Africa, which we have to look at and redress.
But, when you talk about this African flavor and the way the whole thing goes, you just tend to ask yourself, look, for instance, one of the dailies today, Professor Mahmoud was talking about the state independent electoral commissions, how on the eve of elections, they put up that commission, and after that, they disband it. So is this the African flavor that they were talking about?
I think this is actually the abuse. I saw that report as well. And what is happening at the state levels with these state independent electoral commissions is just a situation where you have no election. And names are just written. I have served at the level of the state before. In my state, Kogi State, I worked with 3 governors. The late Abubakar Audu, far back in 1992, Colonel Paul Omero, and the late Colonel Zigula Safakria. So, I know a bit about what happens there and the powers that governors also command. You see, what we are having, therefore, is totally wrong application. And that is where, again, when people oppose the suggestion about state police, it is because of reasons like this. African here, which I'm talking about, is the kind of situation where we try to accommodate our peculiarities. I don't know, for instance, why it isn't possible for us to run a unicameral National Assembly. 109 senators, 360 members of the House of Representatives. You check what it takes to keep them there. And then, you look at where workers are advocating new minimum wage to be able to survive. I filled my car just on my way here, cost me about 70,000 naira, so we can go on and go on. When we, talking about the advocacy for African style, it is not an invitation to chaos or anarchy in government. It is something about being realistic, about, what can work for us, especially from the point of view, of overpopulating the political space and, eating too much of what will actually be deployed for development.
Because we actually need to be careful when we're considering some of these things. We've seen countries in this same Africa that the leaders want to sit tight. We've seen how the war broke out there. They've retrogressed for decades. It's a global village. So if those principles, because you want to play on that global stage. You want businesses, you want your economy, you want your country to thrive. So if those principles are not there because of some of these things that people do, how do we expect to be relevant in the global village? So when we talk about those peculiarities to us, are we juxtaposing them against those global best practices, as it were?
Well, yes, we are not there yet. But even in Africa here, there are probably models that we can speak of.
Okay.
I'm looking back now at the scenario in Kenya. It hasn't been as bad as we have here. Yes, Paul Kagame has ensured relative stability in his country, is that Rwanda. But again, he's gravitating towards Sithitism, perfected by people like Teodoro Obiang Nguema of Equatorial Guinea, or Yoweri Museveni, who's been there for 36, 37 years. Now, in some instances, these are not the kind of examples that we are looking for. But I believe that out of 51, 52 countries that we are here in Africa, there are samples that will probably fit, this kind of mode that we're talking about. It's a new campaign, so to say, so voices have to join this. Beyond whatever was said yesterday, we should be talking about this at the level of university faculties, forthcoming conferences, and so on and so forth. And let's see what we're able to put together, that suits us and suits our people, and also enables us to be able to, operate in the global village.
That framework for what an African-style democracy is, or what a Nigerian-style democracy is, I think many Nigerians will agree that we cannot continue with the model that we're in right now. But the framework for what ours is going to be is what is giving people a little bit of concern. Because if you're going to tailor democratic style to the people and their story and their history, that takes time. You mentioned Paul Kagame and Rwanda. I'll give you an example of something that happens in Rwanda. There is no such thing as a tribe. If you're filling out any form, you cannot. There's no place for you to state what tribe you are from. And the reason is because of their history and that war, and the genocide against the Tutsi by the Hutu. So the idea that they've created, and in every civil service you enter, every office in the civil service, there's always this pillar that has the names of everybody from that office that was killed during the genocide. It's in every office. I remember asking one time, do you protest here? And they said they laughed, actually. Said things like that don't happen here. If you have an issue, you go to the courts. We don't litter our streets. We don't let people protest on the road, not because we're anti-democratic, but because we are trying to build a country. If Nigeria is going to create one that is tailored to our history and our experience, what? Maybe 3 things that you think it should have that would say this makes this democracy Nigerian.
Principally, we have to take another look at the 1999 Constitution under which we are operating. And, look at those things that are not working for us. So long as we continue to operate that very deficient, very faulty, very skewed Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, these issues will be difficult, for us to attain. It will be difficult for us to maintain, the kind of security that we have visited, for instance. It will be difficult for us to ensure that the dividends of democracy permeate where they are. When you have a situation where a minister can sit on his desk and write off billions in the name of palliatives to the people on the street or the grassroots, but this money doesn't get to them, we have to look at those instruments which empower them or which they are abusing to deny the rest of us and ensure the kind of dysfunctionality that, that prevails in our country today.
But if certain things have got to happen, continuing in this narrative too, some of the things that happen here, it's difficult to agree on some things. I remember when they had that conference, I think they almost agreed on everything, except the resource control bit.
Are you talking about the national conference?
National conference.
National conference, yeah.
So that bit, and you see several other narratives. So I don't know if we could even get to that point where you don't put state of origin in this
Absolutely.
country. And then the question about...
And religion.
And religion.
Yeah,
And then the question about our history, in fact. Do we even talk to ourselves about our history? Many don't know.
Is the history taught in the schools?
So this
how much, does the successor generation even know about our history? You know, when you tell children, for instance, oh, this, and actually, if you tell people, some people, the story of Nigerian democracy at 25, some people probably forgot what some of the things that transpired under Obasanjo, under Yar'Adua, under Jonathan. They look so recessed in the people's minds now that they may not be able to piece it together. You see, so it's an entire gamut of our society that needs, sanitation at that level. You talked about the national conference and, the fact that the issue of resource control, fine. And, you also find, some albeit subtle advocates of, we want to do it our way. Some are pretending to want to go. And, people are also fighting for, a return to the regional model of government. And, of course, they cite examples, with how well the Southwest fared, how well the Southeast fared. They remind us about stories of how, the granite pyramids impacted, the northern economy at some point in time. So, everybody has his own pluses, for what they probably envision. But as I said, we still have to come back, review that 2014 report of the National Conference and see, what to adapt from there.
I mean, before we move on, I think what I'm picking from this conversation is that we're trying to find out what makes us Nigerian. What are the tenets?
What's our identity?
What is our identity?
Sure.
Who is the Nigerian?
Sure.
The National Orientation Agency, they say they're coming up with some value charter real soon. There was something he talked about called the duty of care, which he said is inherent. It's inherent in our laws. It's something that every Nigerian should carry, the duty of care. What does that mean? It means if I feel like you're in trouble, I'm supposed to help you.
Sure.
And it's part of what our identity is. But the concerted effort to drum this identity into us so that we know what we mean. Because the way we're carrying on is like anywhere belief is.
We have to go.
Whatever works for us is what we want. Even in our democracy, whatever works.
We have to go back to even our family values. There were things that were inculcated in us when we were growing up. I was born in Kaduna. And I remember that whenever I came back from school then, I ran around with even people at my age then who were attending, Quranic classes. It didn't make a difference.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I was in Our Ladies Primary School, and my parents are Christian. I did my secondary school, I completed primary school in Benin City and attended secondary school in Benin, all through. And, when the late Professor Ambrose Ali was paying for the WAEC fees of my set, nobody asked me where I was from. We have to get back to that Nigerian along the lines that you said. In the past, maybe in the recent past, you're driving, you could even be on the highway. The car in front of you skids, goes into the bush. You are so concerned. You stop, you park your car, and you want to help. But what do we do these days? When that is happening, we take our phones, we begin to film. We are not offering any immediate support or succor to these people. We are all interested in being freak reporters, telling people about this just happening here. And so what have you done, to help mitigate that situation? I've had to release a vehicle, traveling between here and my state. I had an incident. I had to release a vehicle, because we're going in about 2 or 3 vehicles. I said, take these people to the next available hospital. Hold some money. When you finish that, call us and know where we are so you can join up. We need to go back to that.
Ayo.
Chamberlain. So, we had this conversation with Dr. Samadiemi about talking about leadership in Africa. I think it was late last year or early this year. Chamberlain will remember. And he was talking about something similar to what we are discussing now. But he said that we have a challenge that we need to face, and that is that of culture. The system of government we ran before colonialism was monarchical. The system of government that we tried to superimpose on monarchy is a democracy, parliamentarian style. the one we are practicing now is still superimposed on monarchy. However, our colonial masters did not superimpose monarchy on the democracy on monarchy. Rather, they put monarchy under the democracy under the monarchy. So I'm wondering, do you think it's a problem of the style of government, or it's about us, the people, how we internalize whatever system of government we're running?
Thank you very much, Ayo. I think it's a two-pronged narrative here. We are probably also culpable. And, you know, some of the laws under which we run are also culpable. I mean, when we have reduced everything that happens to, you know, advising people to go to court, for instance, when we cannot sit down to actually look at the brass tacks, when a person who tells you go to court knows that he can actually move to a particular level and impede, you know, the flow of justice. So that's why I say the problem is partially ours, and the problem is also partially that of the laws. It could have been theatrical, but I saw this video clip trending at some point about people in a particular country swearing to their own oath of allegiance by wearing a python around their necks. And people are saying that, you know, we should henceforth traditionalize our oaths so that, you know, we can be taken more seriously. So like I said, you know, in my earlier response, we have a problem. We need to, that has to be exercised. And, you know, the template, the manual we are operating is also deficient. Kayla talked about the National Orientation Agency the other time, and, you know, how they want to come up with something. There have always been programs organized by the National Orientation Agency and, you know, similar bodies trying to help us, you know, to achieve a national reorientation. I remember when we came in 1999, the orientation arm of the Ministry of Information and Culture was excised and taken under the presidency. A special advisor was appointed, and part of the mandate was to lead a campaign for national rebirth. I was part of that exercise. Chief Onyema Ogochukwu, a very senior colleague, was the special advisor at the time. And we took the campaign to the states, trying to bring elected and appointed public officers to face their people and tell them how they were working for them. And I'm talking here about 25 years ago. We are here again 25 years after, we are still groping in the dark. So that's why I say it's partly our problem, it is partly also our laws, which ensure that somebody, you know, disenfranchises me, steals what belongs to me. He's seen to have done that, and I'm still referred to go and resolve it in the law court.
You know, Dr. Lusunle, I'm not sure that we have actually addressed the real issues here. We're talking about a democracy. It's a system of government, it's a form of government, it's a way that people selected to govern themselves. But the times when we had monarchies, there were little frictions. Everyone generally just fell in line. Yes, people misused or took advantage of the systems. Then we had military rule. We had autocratic rule at the time. And it would seem like people still fell in line. It only depends on whoever was in office at any particular time. But now we say there is seemingly no absolute power resident in one person. The president can't just wake up in the morning, or the governor can't just even wake up in the morning and say, you know, the National Assembly does not exist, or the State House of Assembly does not exist, even though we have an idea what happens in the states. So it's back to the same question. If we are saying we have a problem with our democracy, what has happened? What has worked for us before?
Let me intervene now. I didn't want to begin here by celebrating, you know, the military form of government. As director of press to Colonel Paul Omero, military administrator in Kogi State, for instance. I remember that the cabinet was a trim cabinet of 9 commissioners. The 9 commissioners, were chosen at 3 per senatorial zone. That was the kind of regimen that was put there, but it was a military government. If you look at our staffing, those of us who were principal officers serving the military administrator, all the ethnicities in modern-day Kogi State were there. I'm Yoruba. The director of protocol was from a different zone. The chief physician to the governor was from a different zone. And these things were purposely, put in place to ensure that the different parts of the state could have a sense of belonging. Sometimes we want to write off the military and say that, they brought so much, ill wind, underperformed, and so on and so forth. That's why I told you, I don't want to celebrate. But there are actually things to take away from there. Coming, to the other part of the question, the point is that as we speak, our kind of democracy is subject to gross abuse. And our people are taking it, they are shredding it in every turn. It's like, we're in some kind of freestyle milieu where you're probably at liberty to do what you think you want to do.
So it goes back to the question, Dr. Luxule. My sincere apologies. It goes back to the same question. Now we have identified, you have identified some things, the elements that worked for us before. There are elements that worked for us in that time. There are elements that worked for us when we had a monarchy in place in our country. Is there a way, talking about a homegrown democracy, is there a way we can pull some of these elements? In Europe, they had monarchies before they began to go in the direction of democracy. In Britain, in the United Kingdom, they still have a monarchy, but they operate democratically largely. What are elements to borrow from those areas that we can fuse together to form whatever it is that we want to call our own homegrown democracy? That's the question that I think we should be asking. This conversation about our homegrown democracy has been going on for way too long, Dr. Luxule.
Yeah, well, comes back to what I said. We still have to sit down and look at the issues. We can only pontificate here and also, and make proposals. At the end of the day, we still have to come to the, to the round table and see how the system works for us. Not just because we are, in the capital, as it were, but, down the way to our people. We here now will not be able to say, I like the background you gave about, the monarchy and all that, but unfortunately, we are in a different milieu now. So I don't really know, what we could say we want to pick specifically, say, from Britain and all that. We have to come back, come to the table, and talk about this. It is beyond, pontification. We have to sit at a round table. An opportunity like this, which is the first anniversary of the incumbent administration, will actually open that kind of window. Let's talk.
I think it's a conversation that has to be had. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has been saying this for a while. Almost at every forum, maybe in the past 2 or 3 years, I've been hearing him say it. We need to get over this Western-style democracy that we're doing here and get something homegrown.
Adaptable.
Something that adapts to our person and our culture and our story. But you see, that's where the issue is. That's where the divide suddenly comes up.
Yeah.
Who are we? What do we stand for? What are our values? And we have spent so many years just surviving and not actually building a character, building a nation that stands for something. I think around the world, maybe the one positive thing that you can say about a Nigerian is that they have swag. If a Nigerian comes into the place, you will know because we have swag. But that's not enough.
I know they're brilliant.
They were brilliant, where we make the best of every situation. But these are things that have to now be curated, not so? They have to now become part of our identity.
Absolutely, yeah. And you see, it's going to be, we have to begin something that grows over time. If perhaps we had laid some of these things out 25 years ago, when we were optimistic that democracy will grow, we should have started, things like this. I like you talked about swag, you talked about, brilliance, and brilliance, by the way, is not monodirectional. We do well in virtually everything.
Oh, yeah.
In sports, in academics, you know, and all that. We just, you know, we excel. So, you know, that's why I'm saying we need that kind of social re-engineering, you know, so that our country does not continue, you know, to just float and gravitate aimlessly, you know. That is what I think we should be doing now.
In fact, yesterday, even up until this morning, I got calls. People say, well, you guys have to thumb up Ademola Lookman because of what he did at Europa League. So that's a rallying point.
Absolutely.
So we can actually have some of these scenarios. People are looking for connections.
Absolutely.
What do they need something?
Yeah, what do you go to?
Why do you think that we don't seem to have this conversation, or something is not starting as it ought to?
Looks like our mentality has been skewed, you know, sadly, because of the kind of, in a way, because of the style of some of people that have, you know, administered this country. The last administration, for instance, you will hear people murmur in the background that, this Buhari doesn't seem to be the one we knew when he was a military man. For me, he was a very convenient monarch who was confined to the comfort of the State House and who just allowed the people around him to run wild. You know, the kind of things that some people did to this country. Under the military dispensation, we used to know, you know, in my time as a younger person, some of those people will have been just executed. You know, what you see, people now know I can do this, I can get away with it. If they take me to court, I can enter into a plea bargain. They take what they want to take. They give me what I continue to run on. You know, so these are issues which should agitate the rest of us. You know, we said earlier, let this system be merit-driven.
Yeah.
Let this system be talent-driven. When the late Prince Abubakar Audu, as governor of Kogi State in 1992, was appointing me director of information, taking me out of my job in Lagos, the Daily Times. He didn't ask, Tunde, are you Christian or Muslim? He thought I was doing well enough in my organization and I could add value to his job, so he brought me in. We have to get to that kind of country again. I go back to the last months of my youth corps, you know, which I had in Owerri. And I had this job interview which I went to attend in Ilorin, my old state, in the State Radio Corporation. And, you know, I ticked all the boxes. I think I scored 96%, so I led very clearly. But I remember that the chairman of the panel asked me, but are you a Christian or a Muslim? So I referred him. I said, my CV is before you, sir. I am Emmanuel Babatunde Olusunle. So my Emmanuelship failed me, and some other person, about number 6-7, who fitted their bill, made it. Wow. But I guess I'm happy I didn't go there anyway. Maybe I wouldn't be here with you in channels.
Well, the thing about all of this is that no matter what, you know, we or the leaders may seem to do, if we fail to have this conversation in this generation, the next will have it.
That's right.
So it will happen. It's just a matter of
It has to happen now.
It has to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, thank you for coming on this morning, Dr. Tunde Olusunle is a professor of creative writing, University of Abuja. Is also a former presidential aide and an author.
Thank you very much.
All right. So coming up on the hour, it will be Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Don't go away.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, good morning, good evening, wherever the world you might be watching from. It's a trading week which is winding down right now. So much has played out this week with a big rate hike from the MPC. Then tomorrow, we get some big data, GDP report for the first quarter of 2024. But first, let's get to the top stories that set your agenda. Starting with the oil market, oil prices eased for a fourth straight day today on worries that U.S. borrowing costs could be hiked again if inflation surged. And we've seen that reflected there with the numbers, $81.63 a barrel for Brent crude, down about 0.3%. The U.S. version, WTI crude, that's $77.14 a barrel, moving away from that psychological level of $80 per barrel, 0.05%. Let's get a check on the FX market right here. The Naira appreciated against the U.S. dollar, 1,000 462 naira at NAFEM. That was a close yesterday from 1,465 naira, 0.21%. That's the gain. Then at NAFEX, 1,458 naira. That was a close, still below that 1,500 naira level, 1.40% increase. That's what we have there. So both gains there, but I know the BDC, that's saying a different number at this time. So some other stories now. We see the Central Bank of Nigeria has issued new guidelines for BDC operations after consulting with stakeholders. The updated rules, effective June the 3rd, requires existing BDCs to reapply for licenses. Other key changes include the removal of mandatory caution deposits of 200 million naira for Tier 1 and 50 million naira for Tier 2 licenses. The CBN has also eliminated the annual non-refundable renewal fees of 5 million naira for Tier 1 and 1 million naira for Tier 2 licenses. To other stories, the Rural Electrification Agency is partnering with Husk Energy in its bid to spread access to renewable energy to the rural parts of Nigeria. The partnership between REA and Husk Energy aims to establish a long-term strategic relationship that sets a global benchmark for scaling the deployment of decentralized solar power projects, otherwise known as mini-grids in Nigeria. The partnership focuses on the deployment of up to 250 megawatts of interconnected mini-grids, specifically targeting peri-urban and rural communities, including markets, businesses, households, public institutions, health clinics, and schools. And to some company news, the financial accounts of the Bank of Industry for December the 31st, 2023 shows an impressive financial performance with disbursements to large, small, and medium micro enterprises advancing credit amounting to about 496 million naira. Speaking during the bank's 64th annual general meeting in Abuja, the chairman of the shareholders committee, Mr. Mohammed Bala, says the loans were targeted at 75,000 beneficiaries. Take a listen.
Nigeria's oldest and largest development financial institution, the Bank of Industry, is holding this 64th annual general meeting amidst recent development in the global and domestic markets, which has pushed the bank into doing better. Shareholders and the management team of the bank are looking at the books to assess the performance of the bank in 2023. The bank takes pride in the fact that its intervention is yielding positive results, serving as a major backbone to the nation's industrial development agenda.
The bank disbursement profile in the year improved significantly as the bank disbursed the sum of 496.717 billion to 75,809 beneficiaries in 2023. This resulted in the creation of an estimated 2.193895 direct and indirect jobs.
Also, the bank's balance sheet has shown strong resilience. This is just as its profit before tax grew by over 117%.
I'm pleased to announce that the group's total asset grew by 64.6% from 2.37 trillion in 2022 to 3.91 trillion in 2023. Total assets increased by 64.6% from 2.37 trillion to 3.91 trillion between 2022 and 2023, respectively.
After the event, the managing director of the Bank of Industry shares his thoughts on why the bank has continued to stay on the path of growth, as well as its plan for the year 2024.
We intend to increase the amount of lending to the MSME sector. We are focused on thematic areas: youth and skills development, climate and sustainability, gender, digital economy, infrastructure development, and so on and so forth.
The management of the bank remains confident of an improved outlook in 2024, while promising to deliver on its mandate to strengthen the micro, small and medium enterprises.